know I said it was probably going to be a while before I uploaded another video, but I got a phone call from my sister asking me if I could look at her PC for her and try and bring it back to life. It's been sitting in a cupboard for years. I mean, I actually had a look at the license sticker on it. It's Windows Vista. Shows how old the machine is. She used to have her PC on a table in her kitchen because it was the only place she could have it. There was nowhere else for her to put it. So as you can imagine, it's got quite a bit of muck build up on it. I've got it underneath this bin liner at the moment because it's looking rather grotty. So what I'll do is I'll take the cover off, show you this. I'll take the back panel off, the side panel off, show you the state of the inside of what I've got to deal with. And she basically just wants it brought back to life so that she can play her Facebook games on it and do a bit of web browsing and stuff like that. She's not a gamer, and she's got another PC at home that's supplied by work. She's a work from home person now. So, but that PC is locked off. She can't download anything onto it, so she can't put any small little games or do her own work on it at all. It's purely for work. So just going to get this back up and running. Now, like I say, it's got Vista on it. That's going to go out the window. We're going to put Windows 10 on it, and as far as I'm aware, this has only got a mechanical. So we're going to put an SSD in it, and we're going to recase it because the case in this is disgusting. So without further ado, let's get the cover off this thing and see what we're dealing with. Okay, so as you can see, it's a silver and black box. It's actually a ZooStorm PC, and there's the Windows Vista license on the side of the case. As you can see, don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. You can see how dirty just the top of the case is. Now I actually had a look through this hole here to see inside, and it's absolutely disgusting, and you're going to think the same. It's going to make you want to throw up, frankly, but we're going to show you it anyway. Okay, so I've taken the two screws out that hold the side panel in place, and I've basically got this set up now so that you can see the state of the inside of this machine when I take this side panel cover off. If you are of a nervous disposition, please look away, because you will not like this. Here we go. Like I say, I have not seen the inside of this machine. All I did was have a brief look through the side vent here where you could put a fan. So this is going to be as much a surprise to me as it is to you. Oh my God. Would you look at that? Oh dear God. Oh, this is going to take some time. Yeah, I am not looking forward to stripping this out. This is going to use about a gallon of isopropyl alcohol and about 300 Q-tips to clean this lot out. Now, what I haven't said as well is this is actually going to get recased. So this case, I haven't got to bother cleaning it because it's getting binned. I'm actually going to use one of my newer cases from my personal stock, and I'm going to use an SSD from my personal stock and possibly some RAM as well to upgrade the RAM in this to make it a faster unit. I'll possibly also replace the power supply because it's not the best thing in the world. Put a new power supply, new SSD, new case, clean it all up. The CPU cooler, I may have a replacement for that rather than trying to clean this because that'll take hours. And then we'll go from there. So for right now, we are just going to strip the motherboard out of this and strip the motherboard down and start cleaning it. Okay, so there you can see close up, even worse, how bad this machine really is. Yeah, it's going to be a complete strip down. So the only things we're going to save is obviously the motherboard, the CPU, potentially the RAM, depending on whether or not I've got some new stuff, the hard drive, which will go back in as mass storage, because there's a load of photos and stuff on there that my sister wants to save. Obviously the IO shield. Power supply, junk. Case, junk. Rear case fan, junk. Optical drive is going to go because it's not needed. Even the SATA cables, I'm going to junk those and I'm going to put some new ones in. I mean, God. And this is what happens, folks, when you have your PC in your kitchen without suitable extraction filters for getting all the grease and stuff out of the air from cooking. It just builds up on your components. I mean, just looking at the cooler on the CPU, the fins are completely choked. I'll show you that when we strip this machine apart. So for right now, I'm just going to get on and strip this machine. Okay, so here we have laid out all the parts that we intended to try and save. Obviously motherboard and CPU, the hard drive for storage, and the cooler. Look at the state of this. If I unclip the actual fan blades from the heatsink, you'll be able to see just how choked that cooler was. Look at the state of that. That's got to be 1/4 of an inch thick of muck on the top of that cooler, which is almost certainly why the machine stopped working, because the CPU was overheating within seconds of the machine being switched on and then thermally shutting down. So I've actually been through my stock and I've had a look, and I have got a brand spanking new cooler that is the same LGA socket as this board. So we'll be replacing that cooler with a brand new Intel stock cooler. It's a slightly shallower fin base, but for this machine it's not going to matter. So we'll do that. Right, so let's get some kitchen towel and let's clean this CPU up and actually see what we've got. Now, while I'm cleaning the motherboard, I will actually have to leave the CPU in place because this was a pre-built, so we don't have the plastic socket cover for the CPU for the motherboard. So we're going to have to leave the CPU in there to protect the pins on the LGA while we clean the rest of the board up. So, but for right now, let's just clean this up and actually see what CPU this is, because I'm not expecting it to be anything special, seeing as it was a Zoostorm pre-built from the Windows Vista era. I'm not even expecting it to be a Core, any of the first gen i3s or anything like that. I'm just expecting it to maybe be a Core 2 Duo, or maybe a Core 2 Quad. So that is, yep, it's an E2200 dual core. Gordon Bennett. It's a Pentium dual core at that. It's not even a core or an i-core CPU. It's a Pentium dual core 2.2 gigahertz CPU. But like I say, for what my sister's using it for, that's going to be plenty adequate. As you can see, the CPU is extremely messy. That's just all the motherboard screws that were left on there from when I took it out of the case. It's extremely messy. You can see all the fluff hanging around in all the ports, and especially up here as well. So we're going to have all that off. Now, RAM wise, we have got, what RAM is this? It's DDR2. That one doesn't even tell me what. Well, they're both 1 gig sticks, but, or is it a 2 gig? No, that's actually a 2 gig stick. So there's 3 gig of DDR2 in here, but I've got a sneaky feeling that they are going to be mismatched speeds. 5300. Oh no, they are the same. They are DDR 667. So they're matched speeds, but they're not matched RAMs. So you're going to be getting it. It won't run in true dual channel. It'll run in asymmetric dual channel, which means 1 gig of the 2 gig stick will run in dual channel with this, and then the other 1 gig will run in single channel. provided the board is designed to run like that. What else am I looking at? Right, so it doesn't have PCIe, a USB 3 header. So the USB 3 header on the case that I use, I need to make sure I use one that's got a tail on the USB 3 plug to convert it to USB 2, so I can use one of the USB 2 headers on the motherboard to run it. We only have one chassis fan port, so because I'm going to want to put at least a couple of fans in the case, we're going to end up having to use a splitter. I mean, the VRMs are pretty much non-existent, but for a CPU of this age, I'm not surprised. I mean, the VRMs on this have actually got the exposed copper cores. I mean, it's literally like a 2+1. You know, 2 there, 1 here. It's a 2+1 VRM power delivery system. So, and obviously we've only got a 4-pin EPS. So, like I say, not the best, but it will have to do. So, we shall get on with cleaning this. It's going to be a mix of brushes, air duster, and isopropyl alcohol with Q-tips. So, we'll get on with cleaning. Okay, so I've given it a bit of a clean. As you can see, the board looks much better now. Got rid of all that muck that was hanging around. We've cleaned the I/O panel. We also had the I/O shield to clean up as well. That was covered in muck as well. So we've cleaned all that. Like I say, the cooler we're getting rid of. I've got a new one to go on. I actually went through my stock of RAM and I actually found another 2 gig stick of DDR2 667. So we're going to take the 1 gig stick out of the equation, put that in, so we'll actually have 4 gig running in proper dual channel now. So hopefully this will make it a little bit faster. Like I say, the other thing we're going to be doing is getting rid of Windows Vista. We're going to put Windows 10 on this because, as we all know, Windows Vista was so resource hungry that 3 gig of RAM just was never going to cut it, and even 4 gig was really on the limit. But Windows 10 uses less resources, and like I say, because we're also going to be putting the boot onto an SSD, this is going to be an absolute little flyer compared to what I know it used to be all those years ago when my sister first got the machine. So for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the RAM in, CPU in, or CPU cooler on. I'm going to get an empty box to sit this on, get a new PSU, and we're going to test boot this to make sure we get a post showing the 4 gig of RAM. So I'll just get all those parts together and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so here we have it all assembled for testing. We've got the new cooler, we've got the 4 gig of RAM in there. I've connected up a monitor so we can see if we've got a post. Just switch the power on the power supply, and I've got a keyboard, and I've also got an old reset switch from an old PC case that I can use as my jumper. Rather than having to use a little metal prong on the pins on the motherboard to short it, to jump it, to start it, I can just use this. So here goes nothing. Let's see if we get a post. Just spam delete to try and get into the BIOS. If this doesn't work, we may end up, it may be a dead motherboard. Or the only other thing I might have to swap out is the BIOS battery, because that's been sat so long the BIOS battery may be dead. I know why it's not going to post. I haven't connected the 8-pin, sorry, the 4-pin EPS, so we're not going to get a post. And I think I'm probably going to connect a beep speaker as well. So let's get the 4-pin EPS first, get that plugged in, and then find a beep speaker in my box of bits. There we go, here's a beep speaker which will plug onto there. So now if we do get any beep codes, hopefully we'll just get the one beep, which means the post was successful. So we'll try again. One beep, and the light's gone green on the monitor. Yes. Here we go. Come on, let's get into the BIOS. Standard. Right, okay. Oh, it's actually got the correct date in the BIOS as well, and not far off the correct time. So even though it's been sat for quite some time, the BIOS has still held the date and time. Right, so we've got DRAM frequency of 667, which is correct. We've got an FSB on the CPU of 800 MHz, which is correct. With a CPU frequency of 2.2 GHz, which is correct. DRAM frequency, yeah, we'll leave that as it is. CPU feature, yeah, that's all correct. Let's leave those off for now. Advanced chipsets. Right, we can only. So we can share 256 meg of the memory for graphics, which I think, because we've got 4 gig now, we can afford to do that. So PC health status. So we're currently running at 30 degrees on the CPU. That's going to be because it is a slightly smaller thin stack on the heatsink than the original CPU, and it's actually quite warm in this room anyway. So it's actually, the room's running probably at about 20 degrees, 25 degrees. So 30 degrees on the CPU, 30 degrees on the motherboard. Yeah, that's doable. So we shall save and exit setup, and I will try and pause break the screen when we get into the post. There we go. So we're showing, we're only showing 3 gig of RAM installed. I wonder why. Is one of those RAM sticks faulty? I know the one that I put in from my stock is a 2 gig stick. I'm going to take that RAM stick that didn't come from my stock out of the board and test it with just my one stick and see if that is definitely a 2 gig. It's labelled as a 2 gig stick, and then I'll run with the other stick on its own to see if that's actually 1 gig or 2 gig. So right, let's just switch that off. We'll take out this stick of Corsair value. It is actually labelled as a 2 gig DDR value, so we'll see what that recognises now. If that only recognises 1 gig of RAM, then my stick is labelled wrong. My stick should be labelled 1 gig, not 2 gig. Right, no, that's registering as a 2 gig stick, as we can see just here, 2048 meg installed memory. So I wonder if this supposed 2 gig stick of Corsair value, no, schoolboy error. I read this label which says it's 2 gig, the actual part number for the Corsair value says it's 1 gig. So it is actually only 1 gig of memory. So my sister was actually only rocking 2 gig of RAM. So even by putting my stick in instead of hers, she's still got an extra gig of RAM. It's still going to run in asymmetric dual channel. It's not going to run true dual channel, but it's better than 2 gig only of RAM for running Windows 10. So we now know it posts, so now it's a case of deciding which case to build it into. Right, so we've now got all the parts that we need. We have motherboard with RAM upgraded and new CPU cooler on the CPU. We have 64 gig SSD for her boot drive, along with her original 250 gig mechanical for mass storage. We have some brand spanking new SATA data cables. We have a 500 watt power supply. We have I've got 3 Cooler Master fans here. They're all airflow fans. You can tell that by the number of blades and the size of the blades. They're airflow rather than static pressure. Now, because the motherboard only has 1 fan header, we have a 3-way fan splitter to plug onto that, run round the back, run all the leads from the fans round the back of the case, and plug them all into this, make it nice and tidy inside. Case wise, I've decided to go for the Rainbow R3. A little bit of RGB bling, so we're going to go with that. I've decided not to put RGB fans in because the only ones I've got are the ones in the packs of 6, the up here fans, and you can't get 6 fans in this case, and I can't run a 6-way fan splitter off of the motherboard, or I can't run 2 3-ways because there's only 1 port. So we're going to go for this. I think this has got some fans in anyway, but we're going to add these. If they're not RGB, we're going to put these in their place. So we'll get because we've actually got the motherboard prepped, because we prepped it for the out of the case boot test. We can put that to one side and we can start prepping the motherboard. Okay, so we've got the case out of its box. I've got the 3 things I need to build: screwdriver, pair of cutters, and cable ties for doing my management. And that is all I think I'm going to need, because I think there might be enough fan screws in the bag of bits with the box. If not, I do have some spare to one side, so if necessary I will go and get them. So for right now, let's get the side panel off and get the motherboard mounted into the case. In fact, I'm not just going to take the side panel off this side, which, if you remember my review, it is glass, but it's not the best cut glass. The actual cut shape of it doesn't fit the frame of the case perfectly. It's slightly kilted, so that's why I have to put it somewhere so I know which way up it goes when I put it back on the case. Just remembered. Yeah. Right, the fans are actually going to be going in the top for intake and out the back for exhaust, because I forgot about this case not really having proper mounts, a proper full length mount at the front for fans. So yeah, it's disappointing. And it doesn't have a tail on the USB 3, so the USB 3 socket on the front of this case is going to be unusable, unfortunately. But there are still 2 USB 2s on the top, so not that she'll use a lot of those. It's primarily just going to be using maybe 1 USB 2 port for plugging a phone charging cable into, or plugging a pen drive into if she wants to put something on the machine. So let's get the bag of bits from off the back. For some reason they'd twist tied it to the grill at the back where a fan goes. They twist tied it onto here. First thing I need to check is whether or not all the standoffs are in the correct place at the moment. So before I even put the back panel in, I'm going to check standoff positions. So we've got that one, got that one, got that one, got that one, got that one. Right, so the 6 standoffs that are already fitted into the case are all in the correct position. So the next thing we will do is fit the I/O shield. So general rule of thumb, if you've got an I/O shield that's still got the old PS2 ports at the top, or an even easier way, the audio ports normally go towards the bottom of the case. So we mount that like that. This is the bottom of the case, there's the audio ports, so we mount it in this way. Start in one corner, push all the way around until you've had a satisfying click all the way around the panel, and you know that it's fitted in place correctly. Although I think this is probably going to be a bit of a loose fit in this case. It's not, oh, maybe not, no, it was just not in the bottom properly, so the top felt loose. Right, yeah, not the tightest fit in there, but it's in nonetheless. So we'll now put the motherboard in place. Now, unlike modern cases where sometimes the centre standoff has a tiny little nubbin on it to hold the board in place while you get the rest of the screws in, unfortunately this case does not have that facility, so we have to do it manually. I'm just going to move the camera so you can see a better overview of what I'm doing inside the case. Change of plan. One thing I did know, I've just noticed as I was putting the motherboard in, I was looking for where the 4-pin power for the EPS will come through the back of the case. The actual hole will be completely covered by the motherboard. So what I'm going to have to do is, I know I'm going to have to use an extension because the cable on the power supply won't quite reach all the way up from the basement up to the top. So we're going to have to use an EPS extension for it. So what I intend to do is plug this, or pass this up through the hole and plug it into the motherboard before I fix the motherboard down into the chassis. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to have to take the back panel off so I can feed it through, and then I'll get that put on, and then I'll fit the motherboard in place. So motherboard can come back out of the case, and we need to take the back panel off. So those thumb screws down there, back panel off. And then I need to feed that through there. Pull it as far through as possible. Pull it onto the motherboard. And then put the motherboard in place. So this could be lots of fun. Alright, so I might have to not plug it onto the motherboard and just leave it sticking up through the case, just while I get the motherboard put in place. This is proving more difficult than I suspected. There we go. Right, so now we're in a position where I can fix the motherboard into position and then plug the EPS into place. So let's just have a look, see whether these are metric or imperial screws for motherboard. Got a sneaky feeling they're probably going to be the metrics. Yes, they are. They are the M3 metric screws. So I'm just taking them to the start of the bite while I get all 6 screws in, and then I'll give them all a little quarter turn. No need to graunch the screws up. If you graunch the screws very, very tight, if you ever need to take the motherboard out again, as I've said before, you will probably find out that you bring the standoff out of the case rather than the screw out of the standoff, which makes your life very, very difficult. So that's those, and again, just like you do when you're doing a cooler on a CPU, working a cross pattern so that you don't tighten the motherboard down in an uneven fashion and possibly twist the motherboard and damage any of the traces. There's one I missed, but because it's a centre one, it's fine. So that is now the motherboard mounted in the case, and now we'll just get that 4-pin EPS, bring it over and get it plugged into the motherboard. Easier said than done when you're not looking at it properly. So there we go, that's that plugged in, and then I can pull the slack back through. Right, so that's the slack back through from the motherboard for the EPS. Again, that's going to be fun. I'm going to have to basically, that tiny little gap just here in the back of the tray where your CPU cooler mount access is, I'm going to have to put the EPS plug in there, because as per the review of this case, the actual cable management space in this chassis is pretty much non-existent. So yeah, so next thing to do is we're going to take all of the front panel connectors and route them through this hole just here where my finger's coming through, and route them all around the back. So front USB, front audio, USB 3, which is non-existent, so we'll actually stuff that down the front of there, in front of that front mount, and then all the other connectors go through as well, so that's all your reset. Now in this case, as per the review, it doesn't actually have a reset switch. That switch that would normally be a reset is actually the LED cycling button to cycle through the patterns on the LED in the front bar down here. So that won't actually plug onto the motherboard. That plugs elsewhere. Or does it? Power LED, hard drive LED, reset switch. Oh, possibly is a reset switch. There we go. And then we have Molex that needs to feed around the back for the power for that RGB strip. So that will come. That's going to have to feed. Oh, there is no way through for that. That may just have to feed through there for the power coming out the back. Now, that's right, so my SSD mounts back there, and the hard drive will mount on the front here. So that's my hard drive mounts. Oh, that's actually my hard drive mount there. It's only got 3 tangs. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3 tangs for the hard drive to mount like so, and the SSD will mount around the back. The SSD will actually mount just here. There's 2 little tangs here and here for 2 screws to hold the SSD in place. So that will be where that will go. So for right now, let's get the hard drive in place. Sorry, the power supply in place. I think I might just peel the sticker off this side. Oh, that's unfortunate. Didn't peel off clean. And put it to this side so that it's not visible through the side panel. I don't have to worry about a little bit of glue left on there. I can just get the isopropyl alcohol. Just get some IPA and wipe that clean. Okay, so now, because this is actually going to end up being put on a desk, I can mount it fan side down, as is my preference. Some people will always say, oh no, mount it fan side up, the power supply doesn't mind having a bit of warm air. Yes, that is true, but I would rather mount fan side down if I can. And like I say, because I know this is going on a desk, because I've told my sister that when she gets this back, not to put it on the carpet and to keep it in a clean area, so that I don't have to go through this again in another 5 years, she will actually keep it clean. As she did the last one I did for her, I forget how many years ago, probably 15 years ago, I did one for her. And again, it was in the same state as this, but in that instance I did not have a spare case, so I did actually have to spend a day or so cleaning the case on that particular build before I could put all the cleaned components back in. I think on that one I did actually put a new power supply in, because like this, the power supply was absolutely mullered. Right, so now all of these components can go through the back of here. All these cables, just keeps it nice and tidy. I mean, like I say, although there's not the best amount of space internally for, in the back for cable management, I will try my best to do management. So let's get the EPS plugged into the extension. That gets that done. We'll get the 24 pin come up. Oh no, I hate this. I can't put the 24 pin through the back. The cable isn't long enough. It's got to come out across the motherboard. Oh, I hate this. The cable on this power supply isn't quite long enough to reach up. All it needed was another 3 or 4 inches. Set the actress to the bishop. Need to make sure that clip is on, which it is not quite yet. As Graham from Adamant IT said, if the clip's not closed, it's not in. That's it, it's in now. So that's rather annoying that I can't feed that round the back. I've got to feed it up over the front of the motherboard. Very annoying. Right, let's get my front panel connectors in. So they're all going to feed up through there. And front USB will feed up through there, and front audio will feed up through there. HD audio, that way, USB. So front panel connectors. I hate doing these things, they're so fiddly. Right, so we have power LED, hard drive LED, which will go around that way. And we have, that's the reset switch, so that will go on there. And the power switch will go on there. Thankfully, this motherboard is of an age where the layout of those pins had started to become fairly universal. So looking at it in the grid of 2 down, 4 across, the top 2 left ones are power switch, the 2 underneath that are hard drive, sorry, power LED, 2 underneath that are hard drive LED, the The two on the top right are power switch, and the two underneath that are the reset switch. That's kind of standardised layout now, although some motherboards manufacturers still don't follow the standard. They still sometimes have their own bespoke layout, but thankfully this is it's one of the ones that uses that layout. It makes it easier to just go bang 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 with your 4 plugs and you're done. So right, so that's all my front panel connectors done. So all my USBs, my power switch, my audios, everything is all done. Think we'll fit the drives next, but obviously we're not going to be having connections to them yet. I think fans are probably going to be the last thing I put in. So next thing to go in is going to be the hard drive, which will utilise, I think, these 3 screws. Pretty certain they do indeed. So a bit of fiddling, but finally got that hard drive mounted in here, and I've also mounted the SSD in the little bracket down here. So it's just as well that I've got 2 routings for power, for SATA, etc. So this particular one, where the SATA is in the middle of the chain, I'm probably going to use that one for here because it's nice and short. This particular one is a bit longer, so I can feed it back through, and it's also got a Molex in the middle of the chain for the power for the RGB strip in the front of the case. So I'm going to cut again and come back when I've routed all the cables. Okay, so we are almost done. I've done some rudimentary cable management in the back here, utilising this trough. I've actually got my 3-way fan splitter plugged onto the motherboard, coming around the back. It is actually a 4-pin header on the motherboard, so it is a PWM header. So it's just as well that we've got a 4-pin splitter. However, the fans are all 3-pin, so there will be no PWM. They'll obviously just be running at full speed, but we will have fan speed recognition within the BIOS to tell us how fast they're going. So we are now going to put, like I said, 2 fans in the top as intake. We'll put one in the rear as exhaust, so it can suck nice, cool, juicy air in through the top and throw the warm air out the back. So we'll put the one in the back first, and it is general rule of thumb, the side that's got the sticker and the frame cage on is the exhaust side of the fan. The open side where you can just see the top of the spindle and the outer curve of the fans, that is the intake side. So the top fans will be mounted with the label side down, and the rear fan will be mounted with the label side pointing towards the rear of the case. So let's get this in. This could be a bit of a bind getting the cables fed through the back. In fact, it's going to be an absolute nightmare. I don't believe it. Right, I'm going to have to hope and pray that for the... Oh no, there's absolutely no space to run the multiple fans. I think I'm going to just have to put 1 fan in the back as an exhaust, not bother with the other 2, and not bother with the splitter, and I'm going to have to run it the same way it was run before in the other case, with 1 rear fan. But upside, this rear fan is an airflow fan, and it's also a 120mm fan, not a 90mm fan, so larger airflow coming out of the case, and then we're just going to have to trail the lead for the fan across the front of the motherboard. It's going to be ugly, but this is function over form, I'm afraid. So the top fan grill will not be getting used. This case is just it's diabolically bad for cable management and for cable routing. So we're going to go that way. these fans have been used in another build, so the actual, and I'm quite lucky, I've actually used one that's been a rear fan before, so the threads are already cut into the plastic for the screws, so I'm not having to fight too hard to get the screws in. So there we go. The last little job is just to run that straight across the motherboard and plug it into a fan header. It's not the prettiest job I've ever done, but it will work. So right now, for my sister, that's all she cares about. So, last job to do is put the front panel back on and connect to some Molex power for the RGB strip, which just happens to be there. We'll bring that out and pull the tail out as well, and then that can just get tied off. I'll just use a twist tie that came with a bag of bits. Just to tie that cable off, because there's no exposed cabling on that, no exposed pins, so using a twist tie is not a problem. Right, so now the question is, can I get the back panel on? Moment of truth. Just get those thumb screws for it. Are they all the same? I think there might be. One way to tell. Let's put them all side by side. And two of them might have a shorter thread. Yes, these two. So those four are for the clear side panel. These two on this side panel. Right, okay, so just clean up as I go. Put my fan screws away. So, there we have it, all built up. I'm not going to put this side panel on because it's always bad juju to put that cover on, because something will inevitably go wrong. It happens every time. So, now plug up the monitor so we can make sure that it still works. Where did I put that keyboard? There it is. Just to get us back into post again. Or get us back into the BIOS again rather. And then get some power. And moment of truth. post beep, which is the whole reason why I put the beep speaker in the machine. And there we go. Yep. Right, so there we are. We're showing on channel 0 master, there's the 64 gig SSD. On channel 1 master, there is the 250 gig hard drive. So we'll shut this down now and we'll come back once I've got Windows installed. We're going to be putting Windows 10 on this. Okay, so we've now got Windows in. And we've actually, yeah, booting up quite fast. So there we go, logging in. I've already got my sister logged onto it. So the hard drive that came with the machine, I've actually had to disconnect because it was causing a disk checking error every time you booted the PC up. So while I was doing the several reboots during the Windows installation, it was asking to disk check and press a key to bypass the disk check. So I think the hard drive's on its way out. I have copied a lot of data off of it. I've disconnected it for the purposes of the boot, just to see how fast it will get in. It looks like it's around about a 30-second boot, which for a 2.2 gig dual core with 3 gig of RAM is not too bad. I've only put Windows 10 Home on this because it doesn't need to be anything special. It's not going to be, you know, accessing servers or anything like that. So it doesn't need to be the Pro version. So I'll just put Windows 10 Home on it. I don't know if it's how well it's picking it up, but it is just a white RGB strip down the front of there to go with the nice white case. So yeah, this machine, apart from going back into that hard drive and getting a few more pictures and data off of it, this machine is pretty much done. I think I'm going to actually leave that hard drive. I'll leave it in the machine, but I'm going to leave it disconnected so that it doesn't interfere. The data will still be on there for backup, but it will be disconnected. So yeah, we'll go from there. But other than that, that's this machine done. So once again, a successful rebuild and getting life back into what was basically a dead PC that had been sat in a cupboard for years not being used because it didn't boot up. And we all know the cause of that. It was that choked up CPU cooler along with other problems. I think probably the hard drive was causing an issue with the boot up as well, because I think it is on its way out. I mean, it's an Excel store, which I haven't seen one of those for 15 years or so, one of those brand hard drives. But other than that, it's done. So as always, if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. It really does help the YouTube algorithm and get my videos promoted to, you know, to the front of the queue eventually. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when the next one goes up, and stay safe, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.